You're listening, hearing, propriocepting, imagining, glossing, grokking, and perhaps coagulating into the Earth Hotel. I'm your unnatural concierge and host, Jackie, here for more focus pulling on the shaky cam I wield as we attempt to view highlights of the Birmingham music and frolicking scene which I so adore. Briefly, a word from the desk on current conditions to offset our stage. Here we are, some weeks later, and the late checkout times continue. I always hated being rushed out of somewhere at 11 a.m. having inordinate and conflicting sleep patterns. That's a glaring issue with wake-up calls in general. If you're wide-eyed when they come, the redundance is kind of enraging. Or worse.
Enraging.
If you've just gotten comfortable after long whiling of frets asunder. I look to the plastic moon on my desk. With instances of randomly cut words which then drifted away and were found again about the house and taped to the plastic moon. Command post.
Stung you.
Period.
Command post.
Me.
Full stop. Comma. Bowls.
Stung you. Use it as an area.
A-E-R-I-A.
I tap the moon, but it no longer lights up. A more natural condition for a reflective body. Let's try an even more abstract time. Something outside. I think of a story from Jewish mysticism. A not quite rabbi attempts to go to the palace of light where the throne of God is. He makes a mistake. He mistakes one thing for another, and he loses his mind. He is, quote, harmed mentally. And the way I originally heard the story was that someone is asking after him and says, what's going on with him? And they're told, no, don't bother him. He's outside. Though that may be my misunderstanding. After our unpleasant elapse since the last program, I wonder how close outside really is, or how far. I think about the annihilation of history, how while we may think we are currently living through a profound historical moment, we are. That moment is split, in a sense, between a multitudinous history that will be remembered and reactivated, and a different sort of multitudinous past that will be lost into ahistoricism. What will be unremembered here, on the newest inside to scrape the crust along its shuffle toward doom? This and many more thoughts have been the reason of monsters that produce sleep, or something, since this episode was recorded. Literally on the 19th of January, February disappeared into a particular sort of fog. After all this time, in a rather head-on, energetic relationship with the fear, it's still hard to manage. I imagine it's a pretty common feeling at the present. I think of terrified and fearless beloved ones in Europe, the East, the global South. Our current privileged position out of harm's reach for the moment is not to be preserved out of some grace or specialness. Every motion seems both fraught and frantic, and so this brief time away to consider friends and beauty, their passion and inspiration, is badly needed as a persistent reminder that, while everything will change in the coming months, there is always human love among danger and despair. These interviews and these experiences feel more like lessons to be kept, rather than distractions to be had. I wish I could only be so eloquent to the people that I love. The last time I felt this kind of danger was a particularly hot summer a few disasters ago. I remember looking out over a blooming little side yard beyond our apartment window and realizing that the fecund swath of green which surrounded us was the deadly hemlock, albeit not exactly the same strain that killed Socrates. I must keep my eye on such a particular guiding star, the honor of friendship depicted in the scene of that very crime. I wonder if it is frustrating to know me, or perhaps I may be blessed with one quality of Athens' wisest man, a bemused adoration from friends and lovers by interest of the soul. Oh, Socrates, he got stuck in a doorway. He's thinking he'll be in a little while. Don't bother him. He's outside. Should I find that such love was, in fact, not squandered by my fitful time adrift, then it will be of the greatest luck that I have just some more time to treasure it. Or will I lose that race to my shame and fear, to the gluttonous dragon that circles in the storm approaching us as the most hideous of harbingers, the limiter to each and last of these human dreams? We must place a hard limit on our fear and nihilism. We must not fear. Fear limits the inner movement within stillness, which, under correct conditions, invariably reveals illuminated paths and features and figures upon them. We follow these figures into the hallways of palaces too graceful and swift to be dirtied by the filth of minds who hate. We follow the future, as it calls our ancestral name. May we enclose our fear and confusion with a bright mind, encompass it, produce a blessed seat for friends and those beloved, to sit, to share, to coalesce. Thus, and again, we remain inside, and go suddenly to this encounter with just such a pair of friends most excellent to discuss their music and more things. James Elliott and Mika Carpenter have both been stalwart supporters and rather active participants of the Birmingham creative scene in bands as diverse as Sister Sniffle, The Dizzy, Sex Camel, Worst Spills, Mother Harmony, my own Incident Ensemble for one night and a few others, and a whole slew of local burlesqueries and happenings, and a lot more things that I'm sure I don't even know about. They're extremely sweet, and I was so glad to take some time and ask them bizarre questions and hear about their music experiences. They're here under the guise of the Sweet Wreath co-outfit Vernal Scuzz, of whose tunes you will hear a few in this case whether you're listening via YouTube or your podcatcher or our website. Vernal Scuzz is led by Sweet Wreath impresario Jasper Lee, whose interview you can hear concurrent to this one. I debated cutting these two together by topic because they complement each other in interesting ways. However, and thankfully, I have learned to both edit myself and a conversation, so they're within an evening's listening of one another as separate pieces. By the end, if you haven't heard enough, there's a great interview with Vernal Scuzz on Psychic Tuesday, local show friend of the show, hosted by the lovely Paul Wilm. I absolutely love this music, and as I say in the interview with Jasper, there is no substitute for direct experiences. I wholeheartedly encourage you to go sign up for Sweet Wreath's wonderful monthly newsletters and their Bandcamp mailing list, so you're notified when they release new stuff, which is not too often, but often enough, and to buy each and every album in the entire catalog and charge it to your boss or something. The last 10 minutes or so of this interview are a series of questions on imagination, interior vision. I'm interested in answers to these questions from you all as well. So drop those in a comment or an email to operatorsdesk@protonmail.com. We opened up the conversation with my go-to party question that I nicked from a podcast that I can't find now. What's the strangest thing you've ever experienced? Many people don't have an immediate answer, and that was the case here, so I cut the question and the short discussion explaining it. Just know that was in the room right before the recording picks up, and we reference it a little bit before turning to the music. I would love to know your answers as well. I think that's everything. Next, we're going to haunt through the Saturn venue with Mother Harmony and Worst Spills for a music moment en route to the wording, their rendition of Song of Will by the Eddie Gale Band. You'll hear Mika, James, and me, and Jasper, and a bunch of other people. There's a veritable explosion as everyone comes on stage, so be prepared for that. A little later, you'll hear a direct sample of Vernal Scuzz with their track Sickle. Knock me, boot me, down in the land of darkness. We'll be right back.
A song of will to be, will to know, will to do, will to see. A song of will, a song for you, a song of will to be strong, will to live long, will to be right or wrong, a song for those who try. When things get rough and they can't take it, keep on fighting and try to make it. Never let anyone think break it. A song for those who try. A song for we who must do or die. A song
That's kind of been the tenor of a lot of the conversations I've had with friends on and off mic lately, is that we're all kind of buckling down into a collective bummer, a collective struggle, trying to adjust to what we don't know is going to happen next. A friend of mine yesterday said that they're missing data, like we don't really know how to respond yet. Granted that this is going to come out a week and a half, a week from now. Who knows? Who knows what we're going to be inside of by then?
Yeah, it's like we've been through it before, but have we been through it before? Because this time feels like it's going to be different.
Yeah, same with parallels to history. Has this kind of thing happened before? Yeah. Not like this, though. It's going to be incredibly unique, however it happens.
This time it feels like the scare quote resistance, half of them are on the other side now.
Yeah. Views in any kind of sense are fair weather, I suppose. Views are easy to hold in conditions that bring your attention to that view.
The concept of missing data is something that I have been thinking about a lot. I do feel that I'm missing a lot of information. That feels right to me. And it's odd to have that realization now as an adult, because I'm realizing in a lot of ways I've felt this way my entire life. That there are things that don't make sense, or things that I don't feel that I have the full story on, and that I don't have a way to get the information that I feel that I need. I'm realizing now that that is sort of intentional, because I'm realizing that I was raised in a climate of intense propaganda and marketing and messaging that was intentionally meant to lead my thoughts in a certain way. Trying to unravel the past in order to put the pieces back together is a task. I think the nature of a weird thing that you experience is that you kind of forget them. I feel like people tend to forget their moments that happen that they can't explain away. That they just sort of rationalize. I don't know, maybe it's, I don't know what I'm talking about.
No, yeah. Isn't that like the Gothic characteristic too? That's how a lot of the Gothic stories end. And then I moved on with my life and forgot about this thing.
Something doesn't fit your story that you tell yourself about reality. The way that you explain the anomaly is based off of what you accept to be possible. So what possibilities of explaining the anomaly do you accept as possibly true, right? Some people believe in ghosts. So if you see something anomalous, you go, well, that was a ghost. If you believe in ghosts. But if you don't believe in ghosts, then it couldn't have been a ghost and it had to be something else. And well, but I don't have an explanation for what that was, so I'll just put that on a shelf. And when I learn more about the world, maybe I can plug that in to explain what just happened. The things on the shelf, maybe we don't think about as much as we should.
Yeah, it's a weird notion that an intense fringe experience, maybe one that doesn't leave a sufficient enough impression, like maybe one that's not traumatizing, could result in one little universe that is devoid of outliers. Like the outcome of this weird event is that, oh, now I live in a place that I've decided has no fringe. Any outlier is sufficiently labeled as such and discarded. I've been talking a lot lately with people about the fuzziness of science as it applies to perceptual tasks or meta-perceptual tasks, and how we have to both be scientific and also not in trying to deal with these things. Not in terms of what is like verifiable. Did I just see something that is real? But do I approach my investigation of the universe that I inhabit after that scientifically? It creates the need for us to kind of flex between the two. I guess that's kind of where we started. We don't know enough to act like this is a rule that we can verify outside of us. We don't have enough data to respond to these situations from a grounding sufficient enough under a scientific lens to say, yeah, here's where we start. But we also can't throw logic out and just decide to respond to all these things like science is just completely dead. You know what I mean? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it's like balancing the dissonance between knowing and experiencing something that defies knowing. You can have two realities that don't really agree with each other happening simultaneously. Mm-hmm. And that is something wonderful about the human mind, that we can do that. We can hold two contrasting and mutually exclusive realities, fully formed, realized and real in our minds and our experience at the same time. And I think it's an important practice to do, actually.
Yeah. I think the discerning listener will find that both the cut-up process done as self-oracle is an example of that kind of training to be in that middle ground, I think, is the conclusion these discussions keep coming to. But also that, as Plato said, you demolish the parable, you demolish the question completely because you showed the work without answering directly that our current situation of multiple realities having to exist simultaneously and not having a way to approach that based on an answer to them, yeah, that's the weirdest thing that we could experience is what we're living through. That ventures into personal history, the doing of history, as opposed to past history as constructed and recalled. Maybe that's a good place to start, because I don't know if we've discussed how y'all got started playing music as people. I think the furthest back I can track both of you is Sister Sniffle.
Yeah, that was our debut on the Birmingham scene.
I think so, yeah. I think that's accurate.
I started playing drums in my teens. Was very fortunate to have an uncle who's a drummer, and he had an old drum kit that he wasn't using and let me borrow, and I was able to learn on that. Played in church for a few years, which was, it is what it is, but it was really good practice. Got me used to playing with other people, playing in front of people.
Et toi?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I find it hard to place the idea of like when someone starts music, like music belongs to everyone and is available to everyone and is just a state of existing in the world. But I picked up the euphonium, the instrument that I think is what I'm playing the most right now with Vernal Scuzz and other projects. I started playing that in middle school. Before that, I'd had experiences with music through my grandfather's piano and clarinet and saxophone that he had left behind. I never knew my grandfather, but I knew his instruments when I was a child. I also was exposed to a little bit of music in church, as you do. But middle school band, I got to pick up the euphonium, which is a beautiful instrument. I was not planning to play that instrument. I didn't know it existed, but the band director needed a euphonium player. And I had come in with my grandfather's clarinet, actually, and was like, I'm going to play the clarinet. And he was like, no, we have so many clarinet players. Please play this instrument. Let me play it for you. And he sat down and he played, I don't even know what he played on it. It may have just been an improvisation. And the sound of the instrument was so beautiful. I started crying as he was playing it, and I decided that if I was going to have that strong of an emotion about the way an instrument sounded, that I had to play it.
I've always been a very socially shy person. I might not be able to strike up a conversation or, mingle, but I can be there in a space and I can contribute something, through musical performance. So, it's been a really helpful thing for me to relate to other people and be with other people. In a social situation, I always feel like I need to be doing something. So, whether it's fidgeting with my hands or chewing gum or, whatever. It used to be smoking cigarettes. Music's a much healthier escape, I guess.
For me, it's actually the opposite. I think I have always been shy and sort of socially awkward, but I have been much more shy and much more socially awkward with playing music. Like, it wasn't a safe place for me. I felt much more vulnerable and exposed when playing music than just my normal. So my relationship with music my whole life has sort of been a journey of embracing that vulnerability in a way that I can share it with other people in a safe way, in a way that feels safe for me, and in a way that has really helped me abandon some of the learned morality judgments that kind of surround music. I actually studied music in college, and I was very hard on myself during that process. I felt very little of myself and my abilities, and I sort of forced myself to do a lot of things in order to become a better musician that were not healthy. And I still feel that I'm not that wonderful of a musician, and I feel that I'm not the best at anything that I do. So my journey has been to stop trying to become the best technically or the best musically, and to become the best at being vulnerable and the best at being okay with where I am in that moment and what I'm bringing to a performance in that moment.
At Saturn, for Mother Harmony. I heard the piece written for Danielle's Baby, and then I heard the piece that you wrote, the bit of the show that I got to hear from the back of the room. I would say that you really delivered on that promise to be vulnerable. I can't think of a more vulnerable creative situation than a full room and just vocals. Mother Harmony is an interesting thing. Being a shifting group of vocal performers, the onstage presentation is exactly and all who is there in that moment. That may be over obvious. There's something really in concept about Mother Harmony being a group that comes and goes in itself.
Yeah, thank you, Jackie. I love Mother Harmony for that exact reason. Honestly, that group has been so good for me personally, just learning to sing with people in a way that feels good. You know, it's a group that some of us are musicians and have a musical background, but most just sing because we love to sing with other people. I don't know, I don't have all the details of the group, but it started out as a group that would just sing children's songs privately. It wasn't a performance group. It was just, let's get together and sing children's songs together. And that was before my time, but I love that that's where it comes from. It's just come, sing, hear your voice. And one of my favorite things to do with them is to have a song where we're all singing together, and then you get to hear the individual voices outside of the group and realize like how different everyone's voice is and how unique everyone's sound is, and how wholly transformed it is when we're all singing together. Yeah, like Danny was supposed to be there that night, and she last minute had to back out, and Juliana filled in for her. And so it was perfect. It worked like a dream.
Wow. See, I had always just assumed that it had started as a informal collective. We're going to come and sing for people. The things people get up to, you know, that's something that I would be so surprised and blessed to find out somebody's doing. Danny's Farm is just the kind of place where you would walk in and that would be happening spontaneously.
Mm-hmm. We do sing there a lot.
I mean, I would have loved to have heard Danny in that ensemble, but I'm glad Juliana got to be there. That was really special. The piece that I know from Mother Harmony most intimately is Song of Will, that we played on the bridge between the Mother Harmony set and I guess that's the Mr. Sweet Whisper Band set. You played a beautiful euphonium on that piece, the Song of Will. I hadn't heard any of that Eddie Gale band before. The community style of the vocals, it was a very similar kind of setup of this, I don't want to say amateurish because that's not correct, it's organic kind of vocal approach, where the goal isn't necessarily to blend, it's to be all together as parts.
I will say that this song choice was from Kennedy. And it's a song that's very close to Kennedy. She has been singing it, I think, for years and years and years privately, just has been wrapped up in it and brought it to the group and just killed that solo and was incredible on it. But yeah, something that we did talk about a little bit when we were rehearsing it was how each voice was individually emoting, so you can hear a lot of variety, and some people are doing a lot of vibrato, some people are hopping on some harmonies. Even though we're all singing together, you can hear the individuality in all of the voices rather than the voices trying to blend. And I think that you're dead on. That's one of the things that makes that song so powerful to me.
Yeah. You look through that discography and it's like, I say incessantly in a positive way, it's like incessantly Black power. And that song, it points in so many different emotional directions. It's a really great selection. And the way Kennedy chose to approach the solo was really vulnerable, straight down to something. Did y'all feel, you didn't feel nervous and unprepared. Y'all felt very much like people standing on a big stage. It's a very vulnerable state to be in. And I could kind of sense, holding, I'm gesturing just a little outside myself, some personal space, but not working to try to fill up the room, Y'all were kind of playing as a little body.
Oh, that's a sweet way of saying it. I honestly don't feel like I can speak for the group. It's a collective, and I don't mean to speak for everyone, but I had a wonderful time getting ready for this performance. Some people were going through some hard times. Some people were having babies. There was just a lot going on, and it was so wonderful every time we got together. It was just such a lovely group. I think we just tried to bring that feeling of like, we're here together, we're doing this thing together. We really wanted to do something special for Johnny, and we worked a lot on that interpretation we did of one of his poems. And sort of last minute, just we're finalizing the details, throwing together movements, really setting intentions for what kind of mood we wanted to bring to it, and just trying to be honest, I guess.
Jasper and I talked a little bit about the stage presentation, his decision to bring people back on during the Johnny Coley set. I really loved Mother Harmony as an ethos that set a tone for the night. Kind of Sun Ra-esque. It's very Flusnoix as well. This is not like a band, jazz hands band. This is not a performance. This isn't performative. There's no kind of like irony about this, which really set a good artistic example for the rest of the night to be interpreted through, in addition to being really emotionally profound. I hope to get more Mother Harmony stuff on the record before I leave. You want to talk Scuzz? You want to do Scuzz?
Sure.
Scuzz it up. Imperial hexagram, unquiet Carpenter. Better be thankful, better be thankful. Throw sign. Holy sweet Diablinia building. Better be thankful, better be thankful. Throw sign, throw sign. Beautiful words are nobody. Look at her. Great revelation in time. Gasoline, lightning, 1-4 dioxane. Better be careful. Outside, inside. Get out the shotgun, put a damn fugue on. Smell of sodium, lauryl sulfate, patsy. With pictorials, pleasant valleys, grain elevators, ritter horses, basso, lotti. Got a new program, tears must operate. Grave regulations, got me. You know the miracle of sign language. Under the sun, your breath will hold it due east. Fresh, clean gasoline over the mountains. Soot on the walls, coyote howling inside. Night, night.
How did this happen? What did y'all do?
We kept showing up to Jasper's house shows.
Yeah, that's. We showed up to the drum circle.
And eventually he asked us to play with him. One of his Mayday shows.
I had seen Jasper perform at the Clubhouse, his musical group at that time, and I'd seen his film. I think it was Silver in the Churn, and his creative expression was something that I really connected with. And so I would just been like telling everyone, like, I would love to play with Jasper. Hey Jasper, do you need a euphonium player? And like the number of people I had asked, I'd been like, hey, do you need a euphonium player? And they just sort of like, yeah, sure, and like giggle, and like I knew it was really a no, like nobody needs a euphonium player.
Until you do.
And Jasper said yes, and I didn't believe him. And then he was like, no, I'm serious, I have a song, bring the euphonium. James and I showed up, I brought the euphonium, and it, like an hour, 2 hours before a show he was having at his house, and he showed us a song, we sat down and played it, and then performed it that night.
James, you and I go back to the Dizzy days, playing Nonsense. When did you get all mixed up with Jasper? How did that happen? Was that Worst Spills that did that? Or I guess Joel and Oyster Guard?
Yeah.
the web that we weave. Oyster Guard turned into Worst Spills, turned into the Worst Spills that we know, turned into Mr. Sweet Whisper, and I guess now back into Worst Spills with Hum Death and whatever we do next with that.
Yeah, I think it was when we started having practice with Joel at Sweet Wreath that I actually started talking to Jasper, and that's kind of where that seed was planted.
Joel liked that I can't play the saxophone really, and that you're like a rock drummer conditioned to play jazz on a seasonal basis, I think was the conceit. In a lighthearted way, I think you're well utilized in the Sweet Wreath oeuvre. I keep seeing new sides of your playing between Sister Sniffle, Worst Spills, and now Vernal Scuzz.
Yeah, I feel like I've kind of evolved into a very eclectic drummer. I guess when I was learning to play drums, I was really into Smashing Pumpkins. I've still got a soft spot in my heart for them for sure. Kind of tried to style my playing, after that kind of stuff. And like Radiohead, Soundgarden, I guess I was always drawn to, more interesting forms of rock, alternative, what have you. Never played any jazz. Always had trouble with like swing time and being more or less forced to figure it out with Worst Spills.
Yeah.
Like a forced evolution, I guess.
It's interesting. I saw a clip of Pharrell talking with Dave Grohl. They were having a conversation about drum patterns in Nirvana coming from like the Blue Jays, coming from like mid-70s like soul bands. Thinking of the alternative style, which I'm the least familiar with. If we're looking at like stripped down drum beats, I'm much more of like a AC/DC rock.
Mm-hmm.
They're not that different, but there's almost like a rhythmic essence that's different there. It's really clean. There's a lot of tom work. Something about that rhythmic pulse adapts really well to the Worst Spills thing. Some of my favorite stuff that you did, especially on the Hum Death takes that got used, it's like very slow, very simple. You know exactly where to put stuff. It's a great instinct, I guess, that comes out of that whole alt-rock lineage.
Right, yeah. I mean, I guess I would attribute a lot of that to Jimmy Chamberlain of the Smashing Pumpkins. Yeah, which, funny enough, he actually came from a jazz background.
Oh, really?
So yeah, he's a jazz drummer playing alternative rock. And then I become a rock drummer trying to play jazz. When I was learning, especially, just tried to emulate what I heard. He's always been really good at just really interesting rhythms. Like, to the untrained ear, it may sound pretty straightforward, but there's always a lot of subtlety and intricacy in there.
I think of like jazz kick drums, where it's just a little bit, just sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it all comes back to jazz and the fundamental American music stuff. How do you see, I guess Joel wanted some of this, how do you see Worst Spills moving forward?
I don't
know either.
I don't know.
I think Joel knows.
I don't know if I can answer that. I mean, I felt like this every time we've gotten together to do something, is that this is the best we've ever been. I don't really know what form that can or should take. I feel like we work really well together. I'd never done just straight up improvisation or anything nearly as chaotic as what we started out doing with Worst Spills. And I was honestly pretty skeptical of it at first.
As you should have been. As you were right to have been.
It's like, okay, who's this crazy guy? Like, these aren't really songs. Like, what are we doing here? but the more we did it, the more it started to make sense. And, I feel like some really incredible performances and, recordings and really good music came out of it.
Dubious Faith should be the name of our next album, I think. Maybe the slogan of this podcast, insistence upon sheer faith. Yeah, we've managed to pull off something. I had the same impression. Like, I know these aren't songs. This is going somewhere. So that's good. I think we're all on the same page. I know Ryan is essentially of that mind from the years that I've known him. Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Ryan's always down.
Vernal Scuzz. I keep wanting to say Vorpal Sword, which is a different band.
Oh, yeah.
It's also a D&D item. It's much coveted.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm interested in what the recording process was like. It's a fun, kind of dark, chaotic record. I'm interested in how the vocals went and how you approached singing on it. And I wanted to remark that I really liked the circuit effect stuff. Like you and Brad and Joel are all now up there with my favorite electronic people.
Oh, thank you. Wow, that's really kind. Oh, yeah. The circuit board is great. I love that thing. It's Jasper's instrument. I was playing mostly Jasper's instruments on all this. That synth chain is his Bug brand board chirper.
Is that little square one that looks almost like a calculator gut?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it's just like a circuit board with knobs on it. Yeah, he got that from some guy in England. I think Jasper got the last one that he has ever made. So they're not even available anymore. He may make more in the future. I don't know. I've been looking because I loved it so much. It's just this hot drone chirper synthesizer board, and it's got 2 oscillators and a bunch of, filters on it. But it's just constantly running this signal that's so sensitive because the entire outside of the board has touch sensitive circuitry on it. So you can connect different filters and things just by putting your hands on it.
That literally completes the circuit around.
Yeah. And so it's a really unpredictable way of creating new and interesting combinations of sounds that are totally unpredictable to me, to my brain. Maybe someone who's just a synth genius would know exactly what's happening, but to me it's just kind of a form of chaos, but a really fun, playful version of it. Like the instrument sort of, depending on where it's hooked up, the position my body is in, the temperature, how much juice is left in the 9-volt battery that powers that whole thing, it does something totally different. So I've never been able to control it and make it do what I want it to do. But I've really enjoyed, some of the best things that have happened on it have just been me reading the instrument and where the instrument wants to go and trying to jump on that train. So people talk about analog synthesizers and these drone boards having sort of a personality of their own. And this is the first experience I've had with that. And it definitely rings true because the instrument is its own thing. And I'm just sort of like a steward of it.
The question that I asked Joel, was directed at the time towards him teaching other people how to play improv music as a conducted group. How do you know when? Is there any knowing when the improv is correct? When we're playing something, like when we're playing as a group, James, when you're doing that following, that stewarding, is it intuitive knowing? Is it social knowing? What are your thoughts on that?
Do you have an answer?
I think it's all of it. With your ears when something sounds right or makes you feel a certain way. And yeah, when you're playing with a group of people, you're constantly feeding back off of each other. So there's a very big social aspect there. It's like a big feedback loop between everybody involved, and it changes and refines, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Do you play any sport? You ever did any sport in school?
No, I didn't.
You'll play video games, though.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot clearer in video games when you've done something correctly, as open-ended as they can get.
The dichotomy between being able to play music correctly and being able to play with other people in an improvisational way is something that I've actually really intentionally chased throughout my musical career, because I was classically trained.
Right.
And there is a wrong way. There is a 100,000% the wrong way to play that instrument. And they will tell you, people will point it out, and they will say that is incorrect, do it better. There's a right way to do it. This is the right way to do it. And there's one correct way to do this thing. There is obviously a lot of value to be gained from being able to play something correctly, classically, and have good technique and all that kind of stuff. But what I was missing was the ability to just I couldn't sit down with someone and just jam. I couldn't just play the instrument for the joy of playing it by myself, much less with someone else. I never sat down and played it without a piece of music in front of me, for years. And I so desperately wanted to be able to bridge the gap between understanding the theory and actually doing it. And it, for me, was a huge chasm to jump over. And I just tried it for so long. And I have found that taking a break from the technical aspects and sort of forgetting the cerebral parts of the music theory and the technique and what I'm supposed to be doing, and relying on the muscle memory is how I have to do it. Like, I can't be playing with someone and thinking about the key that I'm in and the notes that I'm playing and, well, where's the fifth and where are we going to modulate to whatever key. If I start thinking about that kind of stuff, I start second guessing myself. And I've found that there is a way to trust that I know what to do, that I know the instrument well enough, and that I know what I want to hear next well enough, and that I'm listening to the other people that I'm playing with closely enough that we're in conversation, and it's a state that is hard to get to for me. And I feel like for the first time in my life, I'm finally able to do that with Jasper and with Vernal Scuzz and playing with James. They're just so easy to play with. And Jasper's so open, and he comes with an idea and presents it, and it's just, there's space, and I can hear the space that I can fill, or the space that I can create for him to fill or for James to fill. And it just, if I don't think about it and I forget all the things that I spent, tens of thousands of dollars to learn in college, then I'm much better prepared to do improvisation better. And I say that as a lay person because I've not studied jazz. I've not formally studied improvisation. I'm sure there is a right way to do improvisation.
Some people would pay to say so, yeah.
So I don't know what that is, but this works for me.
And I think that's I haven't talked to Joel extensively about what like the coursework is, but I think it's largely like exploration of techniques to be used. And particularly for Mills, where he went, is mainly to facilitate using techniques in different contexts, which I think is like the best way to do art education, is explore technique for its own taste, to float on the sea of taste. It's interesting that trust nevertheless gets born out of the tension of classical training, because it's kind of like learning and then knowing that you can read the music on the page. If you start thinking about it, I've heard experiences of people just short-circuiting their capacity to, like, you have to accept that you are reading the music properly. You can't analyze it while you're reading off the page, or it gets you removed from yourself.
Yeah, reading music it's strange if you think about it. You really are sort of like distancing. The act of reading takes up capacity. Reading music notation takes RAM, I guess, or whatever. You have to focus. You have to expend mental energy just to look at the page and read it and remember the key that you're in and whatever, count in your head the time and all of that. But I think you're right. It's just when it's in front of you, you just have to sort of, yes, I know where this is going, or I can feel the arc of this. I know that at the end of the eighth measure, it's going to be the end of a phrase, because that's how this style of music works. And so I know that I need to ramp up and land in this spot, or you're guessing that you're going to have to do that, right?
Right. There's something about having to inhabit. You got to be embodied at the right time. And if you try to jump out of that, then you end up misapprehending what's going on.
I will have to say, on this album, there are parts of songs that I never fully wrote for myself intentionally.
Parts that you left for improvisation.
And I think that's the first time I've ever done that in a performance setting where I felt safe and confident enough to do that. My anxiety wants me to I know what I'm doing. I'm going to do this exact thing every time. And there were definitely sections of the song where some songs where I tried to do that. And I realized that wasn't at all how the songs should go, that the songs should be tailored to the situation each time I played it. Every time I played it, there is a section where there's so much feedback or distortion or just noodling around that's happening that needs to be tailored to the moment. And that worked for me in a way that surprised me, I think. That I was capable of not having something fully formed and prepared and exactly rehearsed. And then to take that on tour and play in all these new different places and have it be well received. Yeah, so the album captures one version of that. Every time we played it, it was, for me, a little bit different. My vocals on this album happened sort of as an afterthought, most of them. I think as Jasper was preparing the album and recording it and finalizing the details, asked me to sing on some things. And then I realized I was going to have to learn how to sing for the tour in a couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. And also it was very stressful for me. But I had this distinct moment of the time that we were on tour was a couple of weeks before the election, and we were going to places like DC and Philadelphia and New York. And I just felt so clearly that I did not have time to learn how to sing. I needed to be able to bring the vocals. I needed to be able to sing what I needed to sing in order to communicate what we needed to communicate. And it was okay if it wasn't perfect, so I didn't have time. That's something that I've tried to carry with me a lot, is that I don't have time to do things perfectly. They just need to be done.
I think that ethic probably runs through a lot of improv music too. Show's tonight? Fuck it. I got this thing. You got that? Okay, we're ready. It's fine. What about you, James? What are your thoughts? How was the tour for you?
Oh yeah, the tour was incredible. First time I've really gotten to do anything like that. It was a week and a half. We went kind of over to the east, not quite to the coast, but the east side of the country. Far north is almost New York. And then worked our way back down. It was incredible. I feel like if I could make a living doing that, that is what I would do. Maybe someday,
We got to push for high-speed rail so we can do Portland, Vegas, Kansas City, maybe St. Louis, Nashville, Birmingham, and do a Worst Bills tour, a whole sweet wreath, whistle stop, 400 miles an hour. Yeah, I guess that doesn't really happen with high-speed trains. How did the songs go? Did y'all get structures from Jasper or takes to play along with? Because y'all probably did things out of order from each other.
Well, they were kind of formed over the course of us playing together for 2 years, I think.
Yeah. There's some really old songs on the album, from when we first started playing with Jasper. And then, there's several that we learned or wrote collectively leading up to the tour. Yeah, usually, Jasper would have some ideas or some riffs that we would work with, and we'd kind of do some, sometimes just free form, just jams or whatever, and pieces of songs would come from that. Jasper would work with those and weave them into, a cohesive song. That's how a lot of those songs came about.
This is my abstract question that I hope to make sense from. Do y'all have good visual memories? Do y'all have a solid visual sense? To what level of detail can you construct and hold a mental, an image of an object or a room?
Yeah, full realism, I think. But I'm not,
pretty well, I think.
Something you were saying about, you didn't say this, but this is my association, is that classical rehearsal is very stationary and improvisation is very mobile, and it's learning how to be transient. That is the matter of taste, or taste rather kind of allows us to be transient. On a typical day, if you were to sit and try to put yourself in void space without context, meditative mental space, is that empty space easy to hold, as easy or more or less than the constructed visual?
For me, in a meditative capacity, visuals are intrusive to that. So it is sort of something that I have to work to control and to prevent happening. My understanding of meditation is to have sort of a non-existence, hyper-existence, right? Where there's nothing happening, but you're paying attention to everything that's happening. The mental landscape in that situation should be blank, more or less. Maybe both blank and, a higher person looking down on the substance, but up here it's blank, right? It's really hard for me. And it's like shooing away all of the visuals.
People get intrusive voiced thoughts. Do you get visuals more than that?
They go together. I think it's a package of emotion and visuals, and it's an understanding and not a spoken voice.
I think, pretty similar to what Mika said. I don't tend to think in words. My thoughts are very visual and concept oriented. I guess a little more abstract. I don't have a regular meditative practice, but I feel like I can picture nothingness in my mind. I don't know. If I tried to do it for very long, I'm sure other thoughts would creep in.
I don't know. How do you relate that question to music, if at all?
Oh, yeah, I do. I do, actually. I have just had a very visceral understanding of how these things relate. When I'm playing music, want to be focused just on that, especially improv, playing with other people and improvisational setting. Like, you really need to be paying attention to what's happening right now and what you're doing and what you need to be doing or not doing. There are times when I let my mind wander in those moments. And sometimes I can just go off on a fantasy world and just like my body's doing one thing. My mind is just like reliving another life that I've experienced. And sometimes that's okay. But then other times I snap back and it's like, I'll be like playing for a crowd of people live who've like paid money to see me play. And then I'll be like remembering a time my grandmother cooked me meatballs or something.
A little unstuck in time.
Yeah.
I tend to, a lot of times in performances, especially if I'm nervous, I go into kind of a dissociative state. Almost like my body is on autopilot and I'm kind of just watching myself perform. I don't know if it's like a subconscious defense mechanism or what, but it usually gets me through.
It's an adrenaline response going on stage, and it does the body stuff that other dangerous situations do as well. So that makes sense.
I just feel like performance feels like hopping on the back of a moving animal, right? Like, you can't get off. Once you're on it, whatever happens, you're there.
And then you're on the ground and you're like, oh, that happened awfully fast as well. It's over.
Yeah, time doesn't exist. And I think that's what I really like about music, right? There's different sorts of art that play with different mediums, and music, really, the main medium is time.
Time and distance almost, and quasi-distance. Closeness, loudness, shape, contour are all almost spatial relationships. I mean, sound is a spatial relationship being carried by air anyway, but we don't tend to perceive it that way. We tend to take it in as an interior object that comes from outside. Take a vast space and imagine a border in it. Imagine a room in a football field. Then that hypothetical room takes up a hypothetical amount of space, right? Can you hold that kind of relationship with a nondescript mental space?
I think I know what you're... Yeah.
Could you fill that volume not with like a gas? Could you make that volume of color?
Yeah.
I'm going to say, picture a chair, and you're both going to have individual interior responses of conjuring chair. If I were to tell you to make that chair cold, how do you relate to that coldness? How does it present to you?
The material the chair is made of changed from wood to metal.
Oh, see, I was just thinking about the feeling of sitting on a cold chair. There wasn't a visual change.
Was that sensational kind of, I know what it is like to be feeling that, or was it like a body-centric kind of, I could imagine feeling that with my legs?
The latter, yeah.
Metal's an interesting, both are complicating answers, but those are interesting answers.
It wasn't just that. It was that when you told me the chair was cold, I felt it. I felt what it feels like to sit on a cold chair and realize that the chair was metal.
With your body, or you remembered the sensation as like neural?
Remember what it feels like to sit on a cold chair with bare thighs and go, the most intense version of that I've experienced.
Where did you put that chair?
It's just in the void. Just floating around.
Is that where it came up for you?
Mine was in the middle of the room. At the time, the room was filled with orange.
Huh. What was your color?
Green.
Do you like driving? Do you like the act of driving regardless of traffic and people in ideal conditions?
I have a neutral relationship with driving.
I love driving except in heavy traffic.
The operation of a motor vehicle and the way it functions. Is it like appealing to you sensually?
I really enjoy it. With my current job, and especially jobs I've had previously, there's a lot of driving involved. So I feel like I've done it enough now that the car truly feels just like an extension of myself. Like, I don't have to think about where the edge of the car is, in relation to cars parked on the side of the road or anything. I can feel where it is, basically.
Yeah, our brains do actually. I couldn't quote for you the study, but there is, I'm aware of a study of neurology where the human brain incorporates tools into its sense of itself. Like if you're holding a tool and using a tool, your brain creates a impression that it is an extension of your body, so that you can actually feel where the edge of your car is, because your brain has, that's a tool that you're using. So your brain has incorporated it into your sense of self. So you now can feel where the edges of your car are, even if you can't, like if someone touched your car, you wouldn't feel it, but you know the dimensions of your car in your brain. And I was using this as a description because I was trying to learn how to play with a pick, and I hate playing with picks. I'm trying to learn the bass. And so I was trying to play with pick, and I had that realization where I was like, oh, I've gotten to the point where my body has accepted this as part of itself. And now this is much easier.
Yeah, same with sticks, I suppose. Eventually it is just the way you hold them.
Mm-hmm.
Can you make that chair negative color? Can you invert it?
Sure.
I'm not sure if I understand what that means.
Like a film negative?
Yeah.
Oh. Yes.
Just good data. Good data that'll probably end up in something, in just for my own purposes, exercises like that, and that is very helpful, especially from people with different aptitudes. I've gotten a pretty evenly varied spread from people with strong visual capacities, whether or not they struggle with non-fixed or modal distances and stuff like that. So it's a small sample size. It's not exactly a scientific study, but it gives me good impressions from artistic people, self-selecting source. That's the project. That's the podcast. And that's been the conversation.
I really enjoyed this, Jackie. Thank you so much for inviting us. Pleasure.
Thanks for being friends all this time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Likewise. Yeah, it's been really rewarding to be your friend and get to play music with you sometimes. And thanks for doing this. Thanks for the podcast. I've really enjoyed it over the years, and I'm glad that it's back.
Well, thanks. I have nothing more for that. Deep gratitude. I won't besmirch that by adding anything to it. The Earth Hotel is a production by Jackie Cotillard, the individual and named collaborators. All contents included are done so under fair use and with permission. The ideas and opinions expressed here not necessarily reflect those of Jackie Cotillard, the Earth Hotel, or associated parties, nor do they reflect those of guests or contributors prior or future. All music, words, and otherwise not cited as authored elsewhere are creations of Jackie Cotillard and remain the intellectual property thereof. Unauthorized use strictly prohibited. The Earth Hotel, all rights reserved, 2014, updated 2024.